Hey everybody, this is Mr. Marvin coming at you here with an APUSH video focusing in on topic 5.4, which is going to be focusing in on the Compromise of 1850. Now, previously we had talked about how the end of the Mexican War and a gold rush in California are going to be leading to more and more concerns about what's going to be the fate of our newly acquired Western territories vis-a-vis the slavery issue. And when California desires to come in as a free state in 1850, you now have a very real concern that Southerners, those fire eaters that are hell-bent on making sure that not only does slavery exist, but expands into the West, they're now talking about the S word, secession, about possibly breaking from the Union if it looks like California comes in as a free state, which for them would mean the end of the expansion of slavery and the beginning of the end of slavery altogether. Now, remember, when we talk about, something that is intense like this, when things are starting to look bleakest politically in the antebellum era, in the first half of the 19th century, the man you call in is Henry Clay. And Henry Clay is going to be organizing this Compromise of 1850 deal that he believes will be able to try to settle, these issues that each of the regions are having, without having to dissolve the Union. And of course, in any great compromise, you're going to see each side get something that they want. So, from a northern perspective, the big, victory for them is that California is going to be coming in as a free state. This is what California wanted. California wanted to come in as a free state because laborers there did not want to have to compete with slave labor. So California will come in as a singular free state. Additionally, abolitionists of the North had been very upset for a long time that in our nation's capital, the seat of democracy and, the hub for, the ideals of American freedom, was also the location of numerous slave auctions. In fact, one right across the street from the Capitol. To address that concern, the North will enjoy a change to the law there that will bar the slave trade, slave auctions in the District of Columbia. Now, it will not get rid of slavery as an institution. The possession of slaves will still be legal there, but slave auctions will not be legal anymore in the capital. So those are a couple of key things that the North is going to be getting in this proposal. Now, of course, if you give one side something, you got to give the other side something in a compromise like this. So, as a way to try to entice the South, we're going to be seeing this deal come up with a very creative and clever idea of what to do with the remaining territories from the Mexican cession, other than California, that's now going to be coming in as a free state. These new Utah and New Mexico territories, Utah to the north and New Mexico to the south, as you can see over here, what this deal is going to do is open these territories to popular sovereignty. And remember, previously, popular sovereignty is the idea of letting the people decide what the fate of slavery will be in that given territory. Once again, this is the brainchild of Lewis Cass, who tried to become president in 1848. But for many in America, in the West especially, closest to the frontier, this was seen as a reasonable thing to do as a way to try to settle this issue, as opposed to folks in Congress just kind of drawing arbitrary lines to decide, north of this line is going to be free, south of that line is going to be slave, yada, yada, yada. So we're not going to see technically the 3630 line extended in this deal, but we will see California come as a free state and Utah and New Mexico territories open to popular sovereignty, which means that slavery could be extended into these territories that are in orange, as you can see here on the map. Now, the other major part of the deal that the South really was pushing for and is going to enjoy in this deal is a way to kind of remedy what they consider to be an all-out assault on trying to destroy the institution of slavery, and this was the Underground Railroad. Remember, the Underground Railroad was this, smuggling operation that existed to try to help get runaway slaves out of the South and into the North, maybe even Canada. And we saw that those that were looking for those runaway slaves, once they crossed the Mason-Dixon line or crossed the Ohio River, there really wasn't too much that could be done by slave owners or bounty hunters that were looking for them to try to catch them once they get into northern states. But a new Fugitive Slave Act is going to be passed, and that's going to change things up. This new, stronger Fugitive Slave Act is going to not only allow slave owners, bounty hunters, etc., to cross into northern states to look for runaway slaves, it will also compel local authorities to aid in the assistance of trying to apprehend those runaway slaves. So think about what this means for a moment. You are now, as, let's say, a police officer in Pennsylvania, let's say a slave has somehow made it into Philadelphia. Per this new Fugitive Slave Act, you would then have to aid bounty hunters in trying to find these runaway slaves if there's a runaway slave believed to be in your jurisdiction. Think about how horrific this would be to somebody that was not just opposed to the institution of slavery, but maybe an outright abolitionist. The closest thing I can kind of compare it to today would be the idea of, for example, somebody wanting to get an abortion and then compelling a doctor to have to perform an abortion, even though that abortion may be against their moral/religious beliefs. That's how outrageous this is going to be viewed in the North. But it was seen as really the only real remedy to try to, offset the idea of California coming in as a free state. And once again, the whole plan is do what it takes to save the Union. That's where Clay comes in. That's where the compromise comes in. Now, it also includes a provision in there that forces, Texas to give up what its western claims were to this new territory of New Mexico. Remember, Texas believed that their border continued all the way up the Rio Grande, all the way up into what is going to be modern-day Colorado in through here. But in this deal, Texas will give up its western claims to the new New Mexico territory for $10 million. So, we got a proposal. It's crafted by Clay and Daniel Webster, and it's brought to Congress. Now, in Congress, there's going to be intense debate as to whether or not this deal should be done. And you are going to be seeing some, important voices at the time, both, veterans and relative newbies to the Senate, trying to, convince others, their colleagues, about, whether or not this deal should be happening. And one of those is going to be the famous John C. Calhoun from South Carolina. Now, by this point in time, John C. Calhoun, just like Clay and Webster, this is at the end of their lives. And for Calhoun, he is very, very sick. In fact, he is so ill that he can't even deliver his speeches attacking the Compromise of 1850. With concerns that, hey, what if, this deal is passed and, slavery is barred, it's going to be barred in California. It might be barred in Utah and Nevada. What happens to property rights of folks? So he's concerned about that. He has to have somebody deliver that speech for him. We also see, concerns from the other point of view, with a younger member of the Senate from New York, a guy named William Seward. Yes, the same Seward that, almost 20 years later will be responsible for bringing Alaska into the Union. But at this point, he's a senator from New York, and he is, focusing in on how slavery as an institution is such a moral issue that people have to be willing to go and follow what he calls a higher law on the issue of slavery. In other words, what has to be done is following what God would want to have happen. Now, as a guy from upstate New York, this is the hotbed of Transcendentalism and the Second Great Awakening, years earlier. So, he's heavily influenced by this. And so, the idea being is that you cannot allow this evil institution of slavery to be able to be extended west. It's not a political issue. It's not an economic issue. It's a moral issue. And we have to use, according to Seward, our morality to decide on what should be going on here. So you were kind of seeing these hardened voices, both in the South and in the North, on this issue of the Compromise of 1850. And it doesn't look good for the Compromise of 1850. You got some folks on either side that, have some serious issues about it because, once again, they've now made slavery this issue of morality in the North, or, part of the South's total identity and stuff like that. That even President Taylor, old Rough and Ready, is not particularly liking the deal, because he believes that states should be able to come in any way that they want. And if California wants to come in as a free state, it shouldn't be tied to, for example, a fugitive slave law nationally, or tied to what happens to auctions in D.C. He doesn't feel that that's how these things should be done. So Taylor is basically saying, if this gets passed by Congress, he will veto it. And this, of course, is a very interesting what if, because Taylor never really has a chance to act on this. Taylor will contract cholera and will die before this compromise deal is approved in Congress. And when it does get approved in Congress, it will be his successor, Millard Fillmore, from near Buffalo, New York, that will then have to make the decision as to whether or not this compromise deal will go into effect. And he will sign it. And therefore, at least on the surface, seemingly put to bed the idea that we have kind of settled what is going to be done now with regards to slavery in the remaining territories. The basic gist of it now is that, you've still got the 3630 line, which, which extends out to the Rocky Mountains, and we kind of see, how that works here. And that's been extended in the Oregon Territory as well. We know the fate of California, and Utah and New Mexico will decide slavery for themselves. So for some in America, including President Fillmore, the slavery issue, at least in terms of what the map looks like, it's been settled. We know the future of slavery. Here's what it is. Unfortunately, though, this is not going to come close to actually settling the issue of slavery. Remember, by the time we're getting to the 1850s, this is becoming more and more of a moral issue. And deals in Congress where lines are drawn and deals are made to try to address a moral question is just not going to work. And this thing will unravel very quickly. But we'll get to that at a later time. Anyhow, we will see you next time. See you later. Bye-bye.